The Etihad Greenliner has finally arrived as a Scale 500 model, but all that people are asking is it the right color? We tried to answer that question and the question, is it a good model, right after the drop. And with that, hello and welcome to a new episode of Review, where we today will take a closer look at a Boeing 787-10 of Etihad Airways. At the front of the box we have the cutout so we can get a glimpse of the aircraft model inside, and on top of the box we have the Etihad branding. And then the first good news is Herpa has listened to the community. They have acknowledged that their box design is horrible and they came up with this. Yes, they have now added all their social media channels onto the box. This is definitely what we all have been waiting for. And in addition to that, we can also see that it is a limited edition. And here she is, the 787-10, the longest version of the Dreamliner in the Etihad Airways Greenliner livery. And since the aircraft model has been released, the discussion in the community has mainly focused around, is it the right color? Well, we will try to answer that question a little bit later, but first we will focus on the aircraft model itself to see if that is any good. We start off with the tail section, where we of course have on the vertical stabilizer the Etihad design, of course in a slightly modified color scheme to match the Greenliner theme. Then on the fuselage we have a massive Dreamliner logo, just in case you should have any doubt that this is a Dreamliner. It really is a Dreamliner. And then we have the full registration code of the aircraft as well. We also have some lovely detailing on the horizontal stabilizer, and at the very tail we also have some detailing around the APU exhaust. Then at the front of the aircraft and across the fuselage we again have the Etihad branding and the Etihad writing in English and Arabic. We have the company slogan from Abu Dhabi to the world, and we also find the flag of the UAE. On top of the fuselage we then also have the addition of this lovely little sat dome that does look very nice. And of course, if we then move on, we can take a quick look at the cockpit section, where we don't get too many details here as usual, I'm afraid to say, with Herpa Wings, but we do have the marking around the radome. We have the cockpit windows, of course, the window wipers. We have the last letter of the registration code just above the cockpit windows, and then we also have the emergency hatch for the cockpit printed on. Then we have the engine nacelles, which have been kept in white. The only printed detail we get here is simply the silver leading edge. That's a bit disappointing. We could really use some more printed details here. Then we can also quickly take a look at some of the physical detailing. For example, the chevron nozzles is maybe not the best example of those, but it is a very difficult detail to pull off. We have seen that a little bit better, but it's also certainly not the worst we have seen. And then of course we can look into the engines from the front, where we very nicely can see the engine fan blades. Then we can move on to the wings, which we should definitely also take a closer look at. And if we start off here with the top side, we can see the different flaps, slats and spoilers have been carved out very nicely. We also have the marking as to where to walk on the wing. Also the underside of the wing I think looks decent. Here we also find the full registration code of the aircraft once again. Then we have the landing gear here, specifically the main landing gear underneath the wings, and I think that looks very nice. Herpa has done a decent job with that. It looks very nicely detailed and it is very sturdy, so that's a very good job from Herpa Wings, keeping the detailing while making it sturdy. The same thing can't really be said about the front landing gear. Yes, it is keeping it relatively realistic and detailed as much as you can do in that scale, but it is also rather fragile, at least it does feel like it. So maybe not surprising, but I thought it would be worth mentioning. The only critique I really have about the front end gear is simply that I would like to have more printed details on it, have none, which I think is simply too little. A place where we actually have some detailing, which then however is willfully destroyed by Herpa Wings, is the belly, where we have the Etihad branding, but as you can see, Herpa has decided to destroy that with a hole for a stand, which is not included with this aircraft model, making it completely pointless. And then last but not least, we also have the doors to the cargo compartments printed on here on the back side of the aircraft and here at the front of the aircraft. So there we have it, the Boeing 787-10 in the Greenliner livery of Etihad Airways from Herpa Wings in scale 500, which is a very standard aircraft model, except of course for the livery. And that of course leads us to the question, is it the right color? Has Herpa managed to replicate the livery correctly? Well, the first thing we have to acknowledge is that the color does change depending on what light it is exposed to. And that applies both to the model and the aircraft in real life. So it is a really tough job to really determine if this color is correct. But let's try to help ourselves out by taking also a look at the aircraft in real life, which we can do thanks to Charleston Spotter, which very kindly has provided us an image of the aircraft. And a quick side note, you can find a link to his amazing work in the video description below. So if we take a look at the color at the top of the aircraft, we can see that does look much more faded compared to the color we have on the aircraft model. But that part of the aircraft is of course also the part that is exposed to the sun, which would explain why the color seems more faded. So I think the color we should compare is what we find on the belly of the aircraft. So when we compare these two colors, I'd say it's very close. If anything, Herpa's might be a little bit more saturated, but honestly speaking, it is so close that every time I look at it, I come to a different conclusion whether it is the correct or not correct color. And that for me alone, I think, is an indication that Herpa can't be that far off with the color they applied on the aircraft model. But what do you think? Has Herpa nailed the color, or is this a complete miss? Let me know in the comment section below what you think about this. So to conclude this video, would I recommend this aircraft model? Well, I mean, it doesn't offer much when it comes to detailing except the very basic that we get from Herpa Wings. So it is really a question whether you like the livery or not. And I guess that's also something of a mixed bag for many people. So the good news is, in case you don't like this livery, is that Herpa is making loads of Etihad aircraft models, and there's a lot of special liveries coming out in the future. So if you don't like this livery, you can just wait for the next. Now with that, we have reached the end of today's episode. If you have enjoyed this video, then don't forget to leave a like. That would be very much appreciated. And of course, if you are new around here, why not hit subscribe? That would be absolutely awesome. With that, I'd like to say thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you soon again. I'm checking out, and bye.